Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited for today's video because we are going to be doing a thrift flip video, and you guys know I love a good thrift find, especially ones that I can change up and make my own and fit my own space. So we're going to be being inspired by some high-end pieces today and getting that look for less, which is what I'm all about, you guys know. So you're also going to be seeing some pieces that I have shared before in my thrift haul videos. If you haven't seen those, I will put a card up here and link them down in the description box below as well. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's video. So for this first project, I found this really good sized bowl at the thrift store for $7. And it's got some really good texture on the bottom, but I wanted to elevate it a little bit and make it a little bit more special. So I saw this accent bowl on McGee & Co.'s website and thought that it was so cool and would really elevate the look of my thrifted bowl. So the first thing that we need to do is make some arms for this bowl. So I'm just going to take a large clump of air dry clay, a little bit bigger than my fist, and I'm going to start rolling it out until I get it to about an inch thick. And I want it to be long enough to make both of the arms out of. To get a clean cut on the ends, I'm using a small gauge wire and pressing it down over the clay to cut it. And I'm also cutting it in half, which I did not do a good job of, so I'm going to cut off the excess clay here and make them even. To give these arms a squared off look, I'm going to take this wire again and press it down to cut off the sides. The wire wasn't cutting through the clay, so I decided to go in with a sharp knife and cut it instead, and that worked out really great. So I just cut them down until they were the same size. Now I'm going to go in with some water to really smooth out the edges and get a nice clean finish, and to make sure that the edges are really squared off. And now I'm going to see how they look on the bowl and start to shape them a little bit. The arms were a little taller than I was wanting, so I cut them down some, and now I'm going to shape the clay around the bowl so that the arms fit well with the curve of the bowl once it's dried. I put the arms on a cutting board and filled in any holes, and then I let them dry overnight. In the meantime, I mixed up some white paint with some baking soda to add a little bit of texture, and I'm going to start applying it to the whole bowl, and I'm going to do 2 coats to get a good full coverage. Once the clay arms have dried and the paint is dry, I'm going to attach these arms to the bowl, and I'm going to be using some E6000 glue in the center of the clay, and then around the edges I'm going to go in with some Gorilla Glue sticks so that it dries quickly. I'm also going to be using the hot glue to fill in any gaps between the arms and the bowl, since the clay shrinks a little bit whenever it dries, so it left a little bit of a gap. Once I've got the arms attached, I'm going to finish them off with 2 coats of the same paint that we used to paint the bowl. And that finishes off this McGee & Co. accent bowl dupe. Now moving on to project number 2, I almost didn't include this in the video because it's such a simple flip, but I wanted to show you guys how easy it is to change up the look of a piece by changing just a couple things. So I picked up this really awesome brass swing arm lamp for $5 from the thrift store, and I thought it looked so much like this one from RH. So that's what we are going to go for in this thrift flip. I'm just going to start off by cleaning this guy off to get rid of any dust or dirt and a little bit of rust on the bottom. And I'm going to wrap some tape around the switch and put a paper towel where the bulb goes to keep the paint from getting in there. Once I've got it all prepped for paint, I'm going to apply this Rust-Oleum paint in the metallic finish, and it's the color Bright Coat Gold. And this is going to maintain that brass look finish, but cover up the corrosion and the silver accent on the top. The key to painting this is to make sure that you do really light coats because the paint can drip super easily on this kind of material, so you want to do super light coats. Once the paint is dried, I'm just going to bring it inside and take off all of the prep work, and I'm going to add this taller harp that I also thrifted from a different lamp, and this is just going to add a little bit more height. And I'm going to finish it off with this larger Empire shade that I picked up from Walmart for $15. And that finishes off this RH dupe. I saved the best for last, and for this third project I found this chain dog toy and I thought that it would be so cool to use as a base to make a really cool chain decorative object that I've been seeing all over my Pinterest. So I'm going to be taking some air dry clay and flattening it out into long rectangle pieces to wrap around the links until they are completely covered. And I'm not making this layer of clay too thick because I don't want it to take forever to dry and crack. The clay kept sticking to itself, so I wrapped this piece of cling wrap around one of them to help it not stick, and that worked out really great. Once I've got the clay wrapped all around, I'm going to start smoothing it out with some water so that it's not so bumpy, and then I left it to dry overnight. Once the clay was fully dried, I went in with some sandpaper to try and smooth out any bumps that I didn't smooth out with the water, but this guy was pretty textured. So next I just went ahead and sprayed it with some white paint because my original plan was to make it look kind of like a wood piece, but then I realized that it wasn't going to look like wood at all because it was so bumpy. So it turned out to be for the best though because I love the look that I ended up going with. So I decided to change my plans and go for something a little bit more organic, so I went for a soapstone look. To get this look, I started by mixing up some dark gray paint with some baking soda and painting that all over one side of the figurine. Then to get the veining detail, I took a wet paintbrush while the paint was still wet and wiped away the black paint so that the white paint underneath would show through. And I just kept wiping and rinsing off the brush until the clean white came through. I think this technique really gave the veining detail a more natural and real look than if I were to have just painted the veining on, so I love how this turned out. I also used this tool to scrape some of the black paint off for a thinner veining look. To keep the links from rubbing the paint off of one another, I sprinkled them with some baking soda, and that took away a lot of the tackiness and helped them to move around more freely and not rub off the paint. And I just repeated this process on the other side and moved the links around a lot until it was all covered. And once all the veining and drying was done, I dusted off the baking soda, and that finishes off this decorative chain link piece.
So that is all that I've got for you guys today. I'm so happy with how these pieces turned out and love being able to get a high-end look for less. So if you like that kind of thing too, then make sure that you hit the subscribe button because I make new videos like this every single week on home decor, DIY home decor, and making your home look kind on a budget. So if you want to save some money, hit the subscribe button and stick around, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.